channel, and in this video, we're going to learn what it looks like to be a generous person. So we're going to take a look at Luke chapter 21, verses 1 to 4. Now, when we usually think about a generous person, we tend to think that that person gives a lot. So the more you give, the more generous you are. And there is some truth to that. For example, who would you consider more generous in this situation? A person that donated $100 or a person that donated $1 to a certain organization. Now, most of us will probably pick the person that donated $100 to the organization as the most generous, because again, we think that the more generous you are, the more you give. And so for a lot of us, we define generosity by the amount that is given. But God doesn't see things as we see them. And in our passage today, what Jesus does is he praises this poor widow's tiny and minuscule offering in front of the rich and wealthy. And so let's just read what the passage says, and it says this: As Jesus looked up, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the temple treasury. He also saw a poor widow put in 2 very small copper coins. Truly I tell you, he said, this poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on. So even though the rich and the wealthy gave considerable amounts of money to the temple, Jesus praised this poor widow's offering of 2 small copper coins in front of the rich and wealthy. And he even says that she gave more than all the others. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, like, how does that even make sense? It's just not logical. And what is Jesus trying to teach us in this particular passage? So this poor widow only had 2 small copper coins to live on, and she needed those 2 coins to survive and to get by. But she gave all that to the temple. And that simple act of generosity, when she gave out of her poverty, Jesus immediately praised her and said that that was real giving and real generosity. You see, giving out of abundance is good and it's definitely appreciated, but it costs very little. And as human beings, what we tend to do is we appreciate the gift by the amount that it costs, not necessarily thinking the amount of sacrifice that went into that particular giving. But God measures giving differently. And when it comes to giving, God does not count the amount, he weighs the sacrifice. The poor widow gave at a great sacrifice, and Jesus honored that type of generosity. And so in the eyes of God, sacrifice is a measure of giving. And the greatest example of this type of giving is shown in the life and the death of Jesus Christ. Romans 5:8 says this: But God demonstrated his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. You see, Jesus Christ offered himself as the ultimate sacrifice. He gave up his life on the cross so that we can walk into eternal life when we put our hope and our trust in him. And that, my friends, is good news. So God sees and he is pleased when we give at a great cost.